Welcome to the universe in a seashell, the podcast dedicated to science, life, and girl power. I'm Kara Bartek and I'm your host. I'm a PhD, an author, and I want to make this world a more equal and opportune place, one girl at a time. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Universe in a Seashell, the podcast dedicated to science, life, and girl power. And speaking of girl power, I'm hanging out with my two main science chicks today. I've got Penny here.
Hi, guys.
And Cece.
Hi.
But before we begin, I have to give a great big birthday shout out to another main science chick of mine, Claire S. She turned 8 yesterday, and that's a pretty big birthday. Not only is she going into the 3rd grade, but she's getting very, very close to the double digits. And it was a big year for her. She played softball, she was a cheerleader, and she got glasses. So I think that calls for a really nice operatic rendition of the happy birthday song. What do you guys think?
Okay.
What? No pushback?
Pushback is not good.
Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Claire.
Happy birthday to you.
Claire. Sorry about this, Claire, if you're listening. That is Penny and Kara, not me. Cece, I'm supposed to get this one.
Okay, so today we're going to be continuing our conversation about the moon. So on our last episode, we talked all things the moon really as a physical satellite and not one of those metal satellites, right?
Beep, 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 beep.
Okay, is that the way a satellite's supposed to sound?
Yes. Beep, beep,
I think
beep,
that's more like a robot or like one of your toys as it's dying.
beep, 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 beep.
As you can tell, Caroline needs more goldfish. She just ate, and I'm not even kidding. It had to be like 60 goldfish just met their end. 60 pizza-flavored goldfish met their end.
I like cheesy-flavored pizzas. Me too.
Okay, guys, but before we begin, I want to remind you to make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast because your opinion matters. I need some feedback. Let me know. Oh, do you hear Bob? Bob's in there guarding his food. He's our 4th host. Bob is our angry beagle.
And then we also have a 5th host, our really not annoying dog, but she's very, very, very old. And
She's stinking.
Quiet.
What? No, she's not quiet because you can probably hear. I listened to a podcast the other day of ours, and I could hear her walking around her toenails. So I'm sure the mics are picking that up.
Ching, 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 ching.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
Ching, ching, ching.
so I just need to remind you guys to make sure that you're subscribing, rating, and reviewing. Let me know how we're doing. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. And your subscription, your reviews, it matters. Not only because I need the feedback, but it raises the visibility of this podcast. And the Universe in a Seashell is all about making this world a more equal and opportune place, one girl at a time. Right, Penny? Yeah, I can't do that alone. Penny's giving me big lips. Let me see your big lips. Oh, at least you're not beeping or anything.
But she's whining.
Yeah, that's okay. No, she's actually doing really good. This is probably about our 5th take. And we kind of thought that we were going to have to like tie Penny up and put her outside.
Like on the very first one, she flushed the toilet.
Oh my gosh, yes. She like loudly flushed the toilet. And I was like, but you know what? This is why we love Penny, right? Penny's our buddy. Penny's 4, so I have to say that Penny is doing excellent.
Excellent, and I'm going to switch to another class.
Yes, she's going into K4, which,
K4.
by the way, is a big deal. And we've been practicing our letters and writing your name all summer, haven't we?
Yes, we've been doing that. I'm going into 3rd grade.
Yes.
And I'm going into 3rd grade, too.
So do you start differential calculus in 3rd grade, or is it maybe?
What the heck is that?
Okay, maybe not. Maybe just multiplication.
Yes.
Okay.
Multiplication
Okay.
is not blue blah blue blah blah blah.
Okay, listen, girls. So today we're going to be talking about the moon, but not just the moon as the big rock in the sky. We're going to be talking about the moon's influence here on Earth.
Is it Swiss cheese?
I thought that you meant your cheese quote of the day. Between your cheese sticks, your cheese goldfish. You're still talking about cheese?
Yes, I'm hungry. Cheese?
No Swiss cheese. But what we are going to be talking about is some really crazy, spooky, eerie ways that the moon has influence over our Earth and ourselves. And you're not going to believe this. I have scientific proof here. Can you hear my notes? I have scientific proof here to show that the moon influences you, Caroline, influences you, Penny, influences you, Claire, and Dylan. I know our buddy Dylan is listening. All of you folks out there, the moon has direct influence over your life. So it's kind of crazy, and it's kind of cool, and it's all science. So are you guys ready?
Yes.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the inspiration for how I got started on this. So I mentioned briefly in the previous episode where we were just talking about the plain old moon that I was with a farmer in Corpus Christi, and he was talking about this
Globworm.
Well, kind of a grubworm. It's called the headworm, okay? And so they kind of look like grubworms, but basically it's this worm that gets onto the head of corn, and it also gets onto the head of sorghum, and it will eat the seed, which is bad news. So you have to make sure that you're controlling for this pest. So we're talking about it because we had been seeing some moths out in the field, and there was some evidence that worms may have potentially been there. And he kind of just mentions, he said, you know what? You don't really need to worry about it because we just had the full moon last night. And I thought, what are you talking about? And he said, oh yeah, you didn't know this? That when the full moon passes, the grubworms go away. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Is it like a myth, like Bigfoot, Sasquatch?
No.
And it collects animals.
No, that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so it sounds like a myth, right? It sounds like
Sounds like Bigfoot, Dogman, Mothman.
Or you could call it an old wives' tale. Have you heard that? An old wives' tale?
What is an old wives' tale?
Okay, so it's kind of like these little pieces of knowledge that don't necessarily have any basis in real fact. Like, okay, here's one old wives' tale, which actually I do to you guys. If you put Vicks VapoRub on the bottom of your feet when you're having a cold and you put socks on, it will take away your cold. And I've done that to you guys before, haven't I?
And it never works.
Okay, see, there you go. I don't know. Does it work? Does it not? But it's one of those things that a lot of people claim that it works. I've done it myself, and it made me feel better. So who knows? Maybe it was just my mind convincing myself that the medicine was going to work, or maybe it really did.
I need a drink of water.
Okay, Penny, go get a drink of water. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about is this moon, people, earth, animal connection. Okay? So the first and most obvious way that the moon is connected to the earth is through the tides. So, you know, what do you guys know about gravity?
Gravity is basically, have you ever jumped
Not very well.
But
I don't jump as good as you guys.
Down again. It collects down again. Yes.
Yeah, it makes it go down.
Have you ever felt that force that like pulls you down, like someone's just yanking you down? Well, on the moon, there's no gravity. But on Earth, there is. Yes, on Earth. And that's the thing pulling you down.
Now, wait a second. I'm going to have to correct you. There is gravity.
But little gravity.
Yeah, because the moon is much smaller. So that's the deal. So gravity was basically really first talked about with Isaac Newton. Okay, so you've seen pictures of Isaac Newton, right? He kind of has like it looks like a big white beehive to me.
But I've heard the story of Isaac Newton.
Okay, you want to tell us the story?
You know it better than I do.
Okay. See, this is one of my favorite things because, back in Isaac Newton's day, men would wear these big, poofy wigs that they would put powder all over. And it looked like a giant beehive.
Like baby powder?
Baby powder. They're called powdered wigs. It was this really weird thing. So anyway.
So they're like yellow and then they put white baby powder all over them?
I think the wigs were white and then they put white powder on them just to kind of floof up the white factor.
To make it even whiter? Like,
look, I'm not a fashion expert, but that was clearly the height of fashion back then. So
and it's like pitch white, and it's like really pitch white, like sunscreen, like we got.
Like sunscreen, yeah. Sunscreen's pretty white. But anyway, so Isaac is sitting under this apple tree, okay? And I can only imagine that he's got his giant beehive wig on, okay? And so he's like thinking about science stuff. He was already a very accomplished scientist at this point. And all of a sudden, this apple comes and whacks him on the top of his beehive.
Boing.
Right. Okay.
Boing.
So now, what would you do if an apple came and whapped you on the top of your beehive?
I would like this. Like chop it with a thing, and then I would just like...
No.
Like...
Are you saying you would chop the tree down? Now, wait a second. You're an apple enthusiast. I thought you would just like eat the apple or something.
Allie, eat the what? She eats it, the core and everything, except for the stem, and then she feeds it to her dog.
Penny wastes nothing when she eats apples. Wastes nothing. But anyway.
She eats the seeds.
Hey, I'm sure it's got a lot of good vitamins and nutrition. She hasn't sprouted an apple tree out of her nose or anything yet, so we're fine.
The seeds. Have you ever tasted an apple seed?
Are they bitter? Make sure you're talking into your mic.
No, they taste like salt water.
The seeds do?
No, they taste like chlorine.
Okay, well, you're not tempting me to taste an apple seed, that's for sure.
It.
No. But anyway, so when Isaac got whapped on the head, he started thinking, okay, why exactly do things fall to the ground? What is this force that exists that makes objects fall down and attracted to the earth? So he came up with this concept of gravity, okay? Now, gravity is important in the tides. And gravity, we have got to do an episode over gravity because still to this day, scientists have no idea how it actually works. The only thing that they know is that gravity is dependent upon mass. And that basically means how big something is. Yes.
The thing that my teacher in second grade told me was that our Earth is so big and stuff is attracted to it like it's a magnet.
Exactly.
And then the piece that's falling down is like something metal. It's attracted.
It's attracted to it because the Earth has such a huge mass. Well, guess what? The moon has a big mass too. So there's this tug of war that's going on between the moon and the Earth. Now, depending on the moon's orbit, it can be really attracting our seas and making the tide very high, or it could be further away and it kind of lets the tide go. Okay? So the moon's gravity actually pulls the sea towards it when it's really close. I mean, that's kind of crazy, right?
Like if it's close, it like goes back, but if it's like far, it just pushes it up. Like
Yeah.
pushes, like this, like high. Like the sea's like just moving. So this is the front, this is the back. So when it's close, it like attracts. Like like the water's a magnet. Like the water is something metal, and then
Make sure you're talking into your mic, because it's great what you're saying.
And then the moon's like a magnet, basically, and it attracts. But if it's farther away, it just lets it go.
Totally. Okay, and so that's how we get the concept of high tide and low tide. So do you remember, so the girls and I used to live in Corpus Christi for many years, and there was a running trail that I loved, and it was kind of a lowland running trail, and it was right next to the bay. And during high tide, the water would actually come over the trails. And yeah, it kind of flooded it. Yeah, high tides can actually cause flooding. I would also see like a bunch of crabs.
Did you pick them up?
No,
Why?
they were very pinchy.
I love crabs.
Penny, do you like picking up crabs? Penny's gotten pinched by a crab or two out in the ocean.
I've been pinched on the toe like several times when I was like walking. So my friend's mom told me to like scoop my feet.
Claire's mom?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a sea expert. But anyway, so that's what causes the high and low tides. Now, so it's not just affecting the water. It's also affecting the things that live in and near the water, okay? So the tides affect how sea turtles lay their eggs. They affect sediments, clams, crabs, plants, and even how much trash comes up. Yes, Penny?
Like seahorses?
Yeah, it can totally affect seahorses. And here's the deal. We've known about the tides for thousands and thousands of years, but we haven't fully understood exactly how they're controlled. You know, as science has progressed, we realize that a lot of it has to do with the moon. But there's quite a bit of evidence that our ancestors knew this very intimately as well. So they could look out at the moon and they would plan when they hunted, when they foraged. And when I mean forage, what I'm saying is they would go up to the coast and they would get certain kind of sea life that would be exposed during low tides, things like that. So, yeah.
So like when it was close, they knew. Be better.
Yeah, they would look at the moon. You know, ancient cultures learned to adapt their behavior to take advantage of this change, especially people that were living on the coastal areas. They could anticipate when certain schools of fish would come up to spawn or lay their eggs because of a high tide or a low tide. And because of that, the moon has really been connected to folklore and culture. Stories. Okay, because we all know about werewolves, right? That's one of my favorite spooky creatures, werewolves.
Well, we had to start because I had like this nightmare, and we think it was part of her.
I like to listen to
podcasts.
Yeah, I really like to listen to werewolf stories, but and yeah, and it's not always good to listen to at night because it can get very spooky. But anyway, so when you see a full moon and you see a wolf, what do you think of? Werewolves, right? Because wolves howl at the moon. Also, what about vampires?
Vampires suck blood. Vampires suck blood.
But see, these are all the stories that get connected to the full moon. So a lot of times people say that the full moon brings out creatures, brings out monsters, and that's how we get these stories, because they realize that the full moon actually does affect behavior here on Earth. Okay? So
like an animal behavior?
Bingo, perfect segue. So, are you looking at my notes again?
No.
I'm going to hide my notes. Penny, don't let her look at my notes. Don't let her look at my notes. Okay. So, Now, obviously, animals spend all their time outside. So
Really?
they're much more connected to the sky than we are, right? So they're going to be affected when the sun's really hot, or when there's no starlight because it's cloudy, or when it's raining. That's something that's very important to their lives, right, Penny?
Yes, and they have tracked animals, and we have seen a blood moon with our friends, and we have seen anything, but we've seen werewolf tracks and deer tracks. We've actually had hogs. One night, we don't have a garbage disposal, so it was in the evening where it was getting chilly and a little bit dark. Mm-hmm. I was looking out. I was about to open the door to go outside and go out of the gate and do what I need to do outside. And we saw this mama with 7 babies. And it was a hawk.
Yeah, so and that's a really good point, because animals have certain times that they like to hunt, and generally predators are nocturnal. Okay, and we know what nocturnal means, right? That means
They sleep during the day and they're awake during the night.
right. So, what do you think if they're night hunters? What do you think the full moon is going to do for them?
Can I say something? The full moon is like a circle, but the full moon attracts animals. We have seen a blood moon, but I already attacked about that one. But we have seen a top one, but everything we see, it's supposed to be like animals attracted.
Okay, I think Penny's point was that the full moon is brighter than the new moon or Cece's taco moon.
I love tacos.
I really think we should make that happen, the taco moon, because that's very good. But anyway, so there's so much more light. So don't you think it would be easier for predators to hunt?
Yes.
Okay, so doodlebugs. We know what
Doodlebugs?
doodlebugs are, right?
No.
Roly-polies.
Oh.
Okay, during the full moon, okay, because you know how that they trap prey. They make those little holes, right, in the dirt. Oh yeah, they kind of look like a little cone. So roly-polies, the way that they hunt is they make these little bitty, it almost looks like a tornado in the soft dirt, and predators will actually accidentally fall into that hole and they come and grab them. Okay, now during the full moon, they make holes that are much larger so they can trap more prey. That's pretty interesting, right?
Aren't those type of ants that eat other ants, smaller ants? No. Those dig holes in the sand too.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But we're talking about doodlebugs.
I love doodlebugs.
We're talking about creatures that, when I went through the scientific literature, this is what scientists say. Yes, they are affected by the full moon.
Yes, and they are a really interesting bug they have seen.
Now, the reason that they're making their holes bigger is because their favorite dinner is much more active during the full moon, and they know that.
What's their favorite dinner?
I don't know. Other bugs, it didn't say. But they're definitely more active. Okay?
Actually, they like
it's not Taco Bell. I'll put it to you that way. Okay. Now,
we could trap an entire thing at Taco Bell.
we need to get on with that. Now listen, lions have also been shown to hunt more during the new moon. Now, what is the new moon?
The new moon is where we totally cover the moon, and the moon's not even there.
It's dark.
It's not even there.
So they actually hunt more during the new moon. That's obviously the darkest night. And it's believed that they do this because they can kind of creep around more and they can be hidden in the shadows better, and their prey won't see them. That's pretty interesting, right?
Mountain lions do it too?
Well, wolves do, okay? So wolves have been shown to enjoy hunting on dark nights. Scientists believe that the snacks that are favored by these very large mammalian predators move less on bright nights, basically as a way to avoid detection. I know. So they're moving less, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and they can easily creep up and go.
Right. So, like, if you can imagine, you just definitely bit your own finger. That's a podcast foul. We have our first documented podcast injury. Caroline bit her own finger. So, okay. So what they're saying is that these predators. Okay, so let's think about what a lion eats. A lion eats like what? Gazelle, zebras, Whataburger. But they know that they can't see very well, so they're going to kind of stay hunkered down. Well, the lions are all up on that. They're like, dude, I'm about to sneak around and I'm about to go into this gazelle den and I'm about to eat me some dinner.
I'm about to go into this Whataburger and buy me a burger.
I'll buy.
But that's how they
go there. I'll buy Whataburger with people in it.
Penny loves Whataburger. Those are good burgers.
I love Whataburger.
Whataburger's glory.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, so basically these huge predators get to the top of the food chain by adapting their behavior. So, they don't have, like, Mom has a watch that she can track the lunar phases with, right? Well, animals don't have that. All they have is their natural instinct and their connection to the sky, which I think that's pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, here's another interesting tidbit. Okay, now Charles Darwin, he is probably one of the most famous scientists on evolution and evolutionary biology, but he actually thinks that we became afraid of the dark because predators move around at night. Yes.
Why they did that?
So it's basically our evolutionary advantage to not go around and be like, hey guys, what's up on the new moon? Because we will be a big, fat, juicy snack.
Yes, and what is that?
Does it say anything about hogs?
Yes,
I didn't see anything about hogs.
We saw.
Because I think it was a new moon that night that we saw them.
Yes, and I think
I don't know if hogs are kind of more of a foraging type animal.
And our dog named Bob, the one that's barking right now, is the one who scared them off. So.
Yes, and he's a weenie.
Okay, now the reproduction cycles of animals are also affected by the phase of the moon. So off the coast of Australia in the Great Barrier Reef, there are massive spawning events by hundreds of coral species that happen every year, with moonlight being the main trigger.
Like sharks?
No, this is coral.
Cool.
Now, sea turtles also appear to lay eggs based upon the full moon, and because they're sinking with the high tide. Many species of birds also prefer laying their eggs on the full moon, probably connected to the brighter conditions, and they can forage better for food. What do you think about that, girls?
The moonlight shining on the sea, so they can see like sardine pools.
Guys, can I tell you something?
What?
I saw a squirrel and a bird chasing the squirrel.
Was it during the full moon?
No, it was this right now.
Okay. So we've talked about animals. And
Crazy?
Lunatic means crazy person.
Crazy.
Now, but let's listen to the word lunacy. Lunacy. Do you hear something important in there?
Luna.
That's
It's
right.
like Luna.
Now, what does Luna mean?
Moon.
Exactly. So the idea is that the moon can affect people's level of crazy. Do you believe it or not?
No, she didn't talk about that.
Have we passed the full moon?
Oh, yes. Now, see, Miss Amy is a teacher, and she
Miss Amy?
believes that during the full moon, kids act loco in the cocoa.
Get closer so you can talk in the mic.
Okay. So here's a very basic way that we're affected by the moon. It's something called the circadian rhythm. Do you know what that is?
No.
So the circadian rhythm is an internal clock that we have that lets us know when we should be awake and when we should be asleep. Okay? Do you ever just kind of naturally know when you're tired?
Yes.
What about you, Penny?
I'm really sorry I did that. It fell off.
Yeah, Penny just knocked the microphone off. But we recovered. We're fine. Just leave the microphone right here and then it won't fall off anymore. We'll be good. We'll be good to go.
We won't have any accidents.
So, what usually tells you that you're sleepy?
When you yawn.
What else? What are some other ways that you think that you know that you're sleepy?
I'm sleepy right now.
Me too.
Because it's kind of late at night,
eyes
the
get
sun's going
squinty?
down. Yeah. What about the sun?
Oh, the sun's going down and the moon's coming up.
Okay, what about when you know that you want to wake up? What tells you want to wake up?
It's bright outside and you start yawning and rubbing your eyes again.
Totes my goats.
Yes.
So basically, our brain has a very special structure in it called the hypothalamus. Okay, and it's triggered by light and dark. And it lets us know when we should be awake and we should be sleeping. Okay?
Should be
Now, there was this really cool study that was done at the University of Basel. Okay? 33 people volunteered to have their sleep observed. Researchers found that people slept less during a full moon. Now, why do you think that is?
Because it's brighter?
Okay.
No.
Was it the bright light of the moon? Apparently not. Subjects slept in rooms that were lacking any environmental clues, like light coming from the window. So, what exactly could explain the fact that these people slept less during the full moon?
Your eternal clock is reacting to the moon.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the researchers actually detected a drop in melatonin production. Now, melatonin is a hormone that basically regulates our sleep. It kind of makes you sleepy. Sometimes you see it as a supplement.
It's up here, pretend like it's up really high, and then it just drops.
Yeah.
Is that how it is?
Right. So melatonin is actually a light-sensitive hormone. So it kind of needs exposure to the sun. But these participants were not being exposed to light, remember, because there was no windows. They think that this, but again, they never could truly figure out or pinpoint an exact mechanism of why these folks wouldn't sleep during the full moon. But they think it goes all the way back to our evolutionary roots, like when we lived outside all the time. So there's a much deeper connection here between us and the moon. It's like it's inborn with us. It's in our DNA. That's pretty interesting, right?
Like the people before us are in our DNA?
Yeah, that's how DNA works.
Oh.
Okay, now we've talked a little bit about lunacy and lunatics and people kind of going wackadoodle crazy during the full moon.
Ooh, Swiss cheese.
There's even the idea that people could transform into a werewolf during the full moon. And a lot of people think
That's
that
a wives' tale.
Well, but a lot of people think that that's kind of a metaphor for people being crazy. It's not necessarily you're transforming into a werewolf, you're just transforming into the worst version of yourself. So, there were actually a ton of studies that I found about our connection to the full moon and bad things happening.
And us turning into the werewolves?
Us turning into werewolves?
There was a 2001 study that basically supported the idea of full moon lunacy. It was an analysis of 5,431 psychiatric patients. Okay? So, a psychiatric patient means that that's somebody who's being admitted into a hospital that takes care of your mental health. Okay? So, it's not a hospital that takes care of broken arms or diarrhea or other kind of medical stuff.
Diarrhea.
This is a hospital that takes care of your brain. So, if you were to just go crazy and just keep talking about Swiss cheese all the time, I'd have to take you to a psychiatric hospital. And so, anyway, so they looked at how these people were being admitted and how it connected to the full moon. Okay? So, there is definitely, according to this study, a slight increase in the frequency of psychiatric admittance during the full moon. Additionally, they uncovered an increase in the severity of diagnosed illnesses and behaviors associated with these disorders. Okay, there's no clear relationship that's been established between the phase of the moon and the disorders. However, researchers suggest that the relationship might be linked to the hormonal or biological changes that are connected to our brain function and the phase of the moon. So basically, full moon crazy is a thing.
Is that why me and Penny don't sleep during a full moon?
I have a hard time sleeping during a full moon.
Me too. I normally stay up and doze off, then wake up again and then doze off.
But listen to this. Even animals seem to be going a little bit crazier during the full moon. In a 2000 study published in the British Medicine Journal, I believe that is. I abbreviated it and forgot to put the full citation. Oops. But researchers demonstrated a strong relationship between the full moon and hospital admittance caused by animal bites. It seems that animals became testier during this particular lunar phase and therefore more likely to take a bite out of people. Ruff! I think it's the full moon always for Bob.
Is that why he bit you today?
I guess. But now here's the weird thing. Total emergency room admittance. Now, the emergency room is where you go when something bad happens all of a sudden, like a broken arm,
I had a broken arm.
a busted chin, right, Penny?
I had the button chained with that sting glue.
Yes. Yeah, she had to have her chin glued up. But anyway, this study did not seem to support any kind of relationship between the full moon and admittance into the emergency room. But overall, what we're seeing is that, yes, the full moon affects, number one, our tides, right? Because it's changing the level of the water. And it affects the creatures that are in and near the water. It affects us. It affects the way that we sleep. It affects the way that we think. Yep. It even affects the way that animals bite.
Like that? Is it a full moon?
It was like,
Mommy, is it a full moon?
it made a
No,
big hole.
it's not a full moon. It's according to you, it's the taco moon. We're getting very, very close to the full moon, though. So what do you guys think about that? The fact that the full moon can actually affect us here on Earth. Or the moon in general. It doesn't just have to be a full moon. It can be a new moon. Remember?
A new
Who likes to hunt during the new moon?
Wolves.
Wolves, lions, basically any kind of big predator, right?
Like Bob?
The only thing Bob hunts for is kibbles and bits, okay?
All Beetle does, all Beetle bites, all Beetle hunts for is Bob butt, trash, and more Bob.
She does like to eat trash. That's one of her favorite hunting victims is the trash can, especially when y'all threw away all those pretzels in there and she ate them. So anyway, guys, I'm going to be linking some really cool and interesting studies that have to do with the full moon, the new moon, and the way that the moon affects us here on Earth.
Yes,
So please make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review. If you've got a question, if you've got a suggestion, drop me a line at universeinaseashell@gmail.com. Again, that's universeinaseashell@gmail.com. I truly appreciate you listening, and please make sure that you download your very own sky watching kit. Thank you so much.